Вы коснулись того, что в Азербайджане
You mentioned that Azerbaijan remains true to traditional values. There is another country that absolutely correlates with Azerbaijan in this respect. It is Russia. I asked this question at the first forum about what I believe was a historic meeting in Moscow on February 22, 2022, where a historic memorandum between our countries was signed. And since then, the relations between Russia and Azerbaijan have been on an upward trend in an absolutely, I would say, vertical direction. You spoke about it at the last meeting with the President of Russia, and the President of Russia spoke about it at the meeting with heads of news agencies in Sochi, when he was answering a question of the Director General of Azetaj. In other words, it would seem that there is nothing more to wish for. And yet, if we sharpen the question a little on the situation, are there any topics that have not been resolved in the relations between Russia and Azerbaijan? I would say it a bit softer. Where is the greatest potential between Russia and Azerbaijan, and not only in the economy? Since I represent TASS, the news agency should know everything. I know that you have invited the President of Russia to Azerbaijan, and you have talked about it. There are rumors in our circles that it may be in the near future. So what will you have to discuss with the President of Russia if such a meeting does take place?
Thank you. Let me say at once that there are simply no issues that need to be resolved in our bilateral relations, and for quite a long time already. In principle, we had settled all issues on the basis of mutual understanding, mutual respect, consideration of mutual interests, and taking into account the centuries-old history of relations between our peoples, even before the signing of the Declaration on Allied Cooperation, which you mentioned. Recently, you are absolutely right, the frequency of summit meetings has increased, and there is a great need for that. We had meetings both in Moscow in April, and on the margins of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization event earlier this month. And there will probably be more meetings before the end of the year. There are many topics. But I will say that although the agenda is very broad, you probably know it better than anyone else. I think the issues of multilateral cooperation are coming to the forefront, because on the bilateral track, in principle, everything has been adjusted. Political interaction is very successful. The turnover is growing, albeit not like between Russia and Armenia. As you know, the turnover between Russia and Armenia has grown 5 times in the last 2 years, from $1.5 billion to $7.3 billion. It is very interesting to us. We are wondering how Armenia was able to increase its exports so much. Well, the question, as they say, is rhetorical. Well, our growth over the last year was somewhere around 17%, 4.3 billion or 4.4 billion. There is such a stable growth. But as for the issues related to multilateral cooperation, there are many topics we are discussing and addressing, of course, with the involvement of partners from other countries as well. First of all, this is the North-South Transport Corridor, which is becoming more important than ever before for Russian shippers, taking into account the geopolitical situation and the fact that all segments of this project have already been created in Azerbaijan. We are talking about expanding the capacity of this corridor. But there are many other topics as well. Of course, no summit meeting goes by without the discussion of issues that are particularly close to us. These include humanitarian cooperation, contacts between people, cultural cooperation, education. So this is a huge layer that we are all well aware of. So I am sure that this progressive development of our relations will be continued. This is extremely important for our countries and for the region as a whole.
И для наших стран, и для региона в целом.